growing up, it was interesting. We had 3 sets of kids, and so my parents did. It was the older ones, so the older kids, and then there was the middle kids, and then there was the little kids. That's kind of how it went. So I kind of fell in the middle kids. I would kind of get to do things, but I could not do the cool things as the older kids. And so my parents did a great job. People always asked them, well, did you guys pick favorites growing up and things like that? No, they really did a good job. And
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Monday, April 11th. Wow, I have not been online. I've been over on Instagram, but I have not been on YouTube in almost a week. I am still not 100%, but I was like, you know what? I feel good enough to actually sit down at my desk and film today. So welcome back to me. I guess I'm still so tired, everyone. But we are starting to get healthier. So happy Monday. Happy almost tax season. I hope you guys are getting ready to pay the taxes. I'll be doing that soon too as well. So anyways, let's talk about how last week there was a video that was put out by Jed and Katey Duggar.
Even quality time, they made a point growing up to even spend that with us. And so none of us ever felt like, we're, kind of misplaced in the bunch.
It's been pretty quiet from the Duggars since Josh Duggar's conviction, and there hasn't been a lot from the Duggars at all in really regards to anything. So we have not heard from them beyond like a statement about what happened, and they've gone kind of silent. There's been a lot of criticism for the family. There was a lot of criticism for how Jim Bob Duggar handled the testimony when he was at the pretrial hearing, and his things that he forgot and he couldn't remember, and him not wanting to really cooperate regarding what he knew about Josh or claimed he didn't remember. So there's been, normal family members that would generally defend their dads haven't really been as vocal. So in the past, Jessa was usually the Duggar that would make a video or address the situation and claim that everything is great, that her dad and her mom are they're fine, and that there's no issues. But that didn't happen this time. And Jessa has been kind of doing her own thing in a lot of ways. She's moving into a new house. Her husband is in a new church and he's a pastor. And even though she's still connected to the family, they're sort of like going a little bit deviated from the IBLP at this point. We got a new video from Jed and Katey Duggar. Jed and Katey Duggar were married a year ago, and they're pregnant. They're expecting their first child soon. And with the new baby on the way, they updated on their YouTube channel a video about their faith and sort of like their testimony about God. Now, the video, I would say, to me, felt very IBLP-ish, where Katey was very open and honest about her own issues. She talked about being insecure. She talked about her parents' divorce. She talked about how, her life kind of changed when she became a homeschooler in her high school years. Her grasp with faith was sort of a later in life kind of thing. And
we moved around quite a bit and just had some struggles in our family that eventually led to my parents being divorced. And I was 9 years old when that happened. And so for most of my growing up, I kind of went back and forth, staying with both parents. My sister and I did. And while I never doubted that both of my parents loved me and loved us, it was definitely still an unstable environment as a kid. And
really more transparent than I would say Jed. Jed, for his part, it was very, there was some things that he said that I was like, okay, that's great. But he talked about his parents. He talked about how his parents were great parents. He mentioned that he grew up in a very good Christian home. He mentioned that his parents did not play favorites, which I thought was interesting. It didn't seem like it was a necessary add-in, but for sure, he said that his parents did not play favorites. One of the criticisms of the Duggars has been for a long time that their favorite was Josh because he was the firstborn and sort of that golden son. So he mentioned that his parents don't play favorites, that they all had lots of quality time with them. Kind of very similar to what the Duggars say about, their parenting, how they made a lot of time for the kids. And I don't know, like, if you've got 19 kids, if you can make that kind of time for them, that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Grew up just in a small home. It was probably less than 2,000 square feet, kind of all just squished in there. But it was just a really neat time. I remember growing up years, it was just always fun. We had something we did. We spent a lot of time as a family doing stuff together. And my families were just a really good Christian family. I never doubted my parents' love for me, and I know all my siblings can say that as well. They really loved us.
So once that part was done, one thing that I thought was kind of odd in the whole entire situation is that in the middle of this, so he's talking about what a great childhood he has. He's talking about what his parents made, all kinds of great memories, all of the foundational, structural things about Christ that they learned and how Christ was the center focus of their home, and never sort of addressed the familial problems that happened in his family. So where Katey was very open and was like, my parents got a divorce and it was very hard on me, Jed was like, life was great. My parents were amazing. Family was wonderful. It was not like, well, my brother did some stuff to my sisters. There was an investigation. He was sent away a lot. I mean, there was nothing like that at all. I mean, it's not him that did it, so he doesn't have to address it. But it's also obviously a sort of a lie by omission when you don't address the fact that there was huge things happening in your family that would have impacted you. With Katey saying my parents' divorce impacted me, I have no doubt that Josh and what happened with Josh and the girls and how the whole family dealt with it impacted all of the kids. So seemingly ignoring kind of that elephant in the room that is Josh, he then in another part of the video started talking about how filming actually was it taught him how to put on a front. So people said that he said that people would have assumed that he would have just naturally been a Christian because he grew up in a Christian home. And he said that he had to find a way when he was in his teens to realize that he was a Christian on his own. And it wasn't because his parents made him, that he had to say a prayer to Jesus, that he was a sinner and that he is not, he should die for his sins. And, once he sort of confessed before Jesus, everything was great. And he sort of went on his merry way. But he did say that being on television kind of made him learn how to sort of fake it, put on a front so that people believed that he was a certain way when he wasn't.
And I had never really made a decision in my life to say, okay, I'm done living my way. And I had a lot of, my patterns and how I did things. And I had a lot of guilt because of that. But I remember at the age of 14, I truly said, okay, God, I'm done with my sin. I'm done with living the way I want to live. And I just finally turned my life over to Jesus.
And, how it kind of made him a little bit more apt to pretend that he was something that he wasn't.
In my life, Jed, take this out of your life. And it's not like he speaks to me audibly, but when you give your life to Christ, the Holy Spirit comes to live inside you. And that Spirit, it's amazing. It speaks to people differently. But I know what he's speaking to me. When he pricks my heart and says, Jed, you need to get this out of your life. You need to just stop hanging around that person and don't allow that activity in your life. Don't watch that movie or whatever. If it's music, whatever it is. Oh, well, and I think for me, growing up, even having a lot of people watching our family and kind of watching our lives as we grew up, it was easy to put on a front and be afraid what people thought about me too. If I was to, give my life truly to Christ, what are they going to think? Did I not do that before? Or, I was just trying to live this good Christian life so everybody would think I was a good person and doing good and put a smile on my face, go on, camera and but I had to come to a spot where I was done with that. I didn't care what people thought. I'm going to make a decision to follow Christ. And
this is the one criticism that I think a lot of people had with the Duggars show, is just the level of, I think, inauthenticness there was. So first of all, nobody is suggesting that every single person in the Duggar family is a horrible person, or that because Josh did something that it is everyone else's fault. But when you're on television and you're proclaiming to be like a very good, loving Christian family, and then you're kind of omitting the very dark parts of your story and not being honest about those parts of your story, and then once everything comes out, kind of brushing it aside and acting like it never happened, and then on top of that, not really showing the interwoven problems that happen within the family. They probably had this idea that they were going to put together like this family fun show and it wasn't going to be about drama. But reality television sort of thrives off of drama. So that could explain why over time fans just started tuning out, because when you're watching something that seems so highly curated and fake, and you know that there's all this stuff happening in the background that's not matching what you're seeing on TV, people will start to notice that it's just incongruent. I think for the Duggars, it would have been a more authentic show if they would have been more open with their struggles, and it wasn't so, everything's great, we're a great Christian family. Like, everything in life is not perfect and nothing is simple. Messy is a part of life, and messy is actually what a lot of people identify with, because going through struggles is how people ultimately identify with other people. And they're like, I can see that they're struggling with that, so I understand this is challenging, and this makes me feel more empathetic, or this makes me feel, like I like them more, or I see myself in that person. Not so much when you're sort of like on a stage and you're like acting like you're so much better than people. Does that make sense? Now, the Duggars said that they used the show as sort of a way to minister to their audience and to, tell people about Christ. And that's a lot of what felt like with Jed's video. So Jed did not admit to what his sins were, which I thought, again, was just odd. Like, Katey admitted to being insecure and her own issues, and Jed would not say what his sins were. And listen, he didn't have to say. He didn't have to say anything. I just think it's odd when someone says, hey, I'm going to tell you my testimony, but I'm not going to tell you my testimony, right? And then he sort of throws in at the very end that worldly things like drugs, alcohol, and watching adult content, the illicit stuff online or on the computer, is a huge problem. He didn't say he struggled with drugs, alcohol, or the P word. He didn't say any of those things. He just said, well, in the world, some people struggle with these things.
Great things, even out there in the world, there's, there's drugs or alcohol or pornography or all these things in the world saying, get more of this and you'll be happy. I'll tell you, the happiest people I know are those that have peace with God, knowing that if they were to die, where they're going, and having just the Holy Spirit living inside us. So,
and everyone has a choice.
Would any of you be shocked if you found out, like, down, say, maybe 20 years from now, we find out, like, one of the Duggars actually had a massive drug problem, or they were actually raging alcoholics, or they were hiding their alcoholism or drug addictions, or whatever it is? Like, addiction is a disease, so you don't want to, like, fault someone and say, like, you're a bad person because you became addicted to a substance. But if that were the case, I think it would also be a more authentic picture of this family, right? So I don't know. I mean, when Josh was going through this stuff in 2015, it did come out that he drank, and he would go to these bars and have beers and stuff. So, and not all the Duggars don't drink anymore. I mean, Jill and Derek, they drink, and I think Jeremy and Ginger drink. So the not drinking thing is not consistent across the board. So I don't know what Jed's I don't know what Jed's actual sins are, but again, this actually felt very IBLP to me. They are both still active members in the IBLP. So Jed and Katey have done leadership, they've done speaking events, they've done engagements. In fact, when Josh was arrested last year, they were at the conference. So there was this family conference happening in April, and Josh was they were literally down there, and Jim, Bob, and Michelle had to leave, and they sort of took over, and Katey, I think, led a women's conference, and Jed did some speaking. So this is a couple that's very in the IBLP right now. So are they really ministering and sharing their testimony, or is this video more of a recruitment technique to get you to come into their group and learn about their alleged cult? Or is it just being like, hey, this is us, this is our testimony? Obviously, I don't have a ton. I mean, overall, I thought Katey was very likable. I think seems like a total sweetheart. And I think she's definitely very, you can tell that her life has been very different in that she's had a lot more exposure to the outside world because she went to public school for a very long time, and she had parents that lived in different areas, and she had older siblings that were half siblings. So I think she's had more exposure outside of that bubble. And I actually thought she was really sweet. So for the first time actually getting to actually sit down and hear Katey's voice and hear her, I was like, oh, she seems like a sweetheart. And then with Jed, I was just like, oh, I just wish there was realness, But that's just my opinion. What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.